and page 43, appropriations to the Oversight Committee of the Parliament.
Can we do the Parliament first on page 38? Sure. Did you, with your kind indulgence? Okay, thank you. Appropriations to the Premier on behalf of the Parliament. LEA1, Administrative Services provided to the Parliament and members of the Parliament. 3107,572 for 24, 3097,503 for 25. Other executive expenses, OE5, constituency allowance 1404825 for 24, 1404825 for 25, OE71, Commonwealth of Parliamentary Association 150,000 for 24, 150,000 for 25. OE128, personal emoluments for the Premier, Deputy Premier, Speaker of Parliament, Ministers and Members of Parliament 4169,704 24, 4287,652.25. OE129, Executive Depreciation Parliament 195,000 for 24, 195,000 for 25. OE130, Administrative and Advisory Support to Members of Parliament 291,0587 for 24, 2987495 for 25. OE150, Repairs to Parliament Building 25,024 and 25,025. Equity Investment EI88 Parliament 15,000 for 24, 15,000 for 25. I put the question. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. The appropriations to the Premier on behalf of the Parliament has been passed. Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Page 42, the Public Accounts Committee. Appropriations to the Public Accounts Committee. ADO2, Services to the Parliament and its committees 1192,800 for 24, 1248,267 for 25. Put the question. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. The next appropriation is to the Oversight Committee to the Parliament. OBM1, Independent Public Complaints and Information Rights 2524910 for 24, 2564832 for 25. EI75 sorry. EI75, Equity Investment, Office of the Ombudsman 25,000 for 24, 25,000 for 25. I put the question. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honourable
Sorry
Leader of the
to
Opposition.
keep disturbing you. Is there anyone here from Judicial, from representing the Chief Justice's office?
Yes, sir.
But what I would signal and say is we have no problem with all of the votes here, except for the executive asset, just would like courthouse. Would like if we could get an update on what's actually happening.
So can I put from JAD1 to EI21?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you kindly. Appropriations to Cabinet on behalf of the Chief Justice. JAD1, Administrative Support to the Judiciary 3269948 for 24, 3298125 for 25. JAD2, Support for Court Proceedings 8321802 for 24, 83322753 for 25. JD3, collection of revenue, 1 is 001626 for 24, 1 is 004663 for 25. JAD4, financial management of court funds, 707860. Mr. Saunders, did you have? Oh, 707860 for 24, 1 is 0709 for 25. HEA8, autopsies, coroner and other related services, 302,000 for 24, 312,000 for 25. NGS2, legal aid services, 2800 is 000 for 24, 29 is 00 is 000 for 25. Other executive expenses is OE1, personal emoluments for the judiciary, 4687398 for 24, 4940 940 for 25. OE4, judiciary expenses, 1 is 077418 for 24, 1 is 027700 for 25. OE43, depreciation of judicial executive assets, 430,000 for 24, 460,000 for 25. OE57, executive bank charges, 10,000 for 24, the same amount of 10,000 for 25. OE65, Court of Appeal expenses, 1167947 for 24, 1224109 for 25. EI21, judicial administration, 601,500 for 24, 534 is 0 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye. Against, no. I believe the ayes have it. EA 145, courthouse, I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to know and get an update on the status now of the courthouse. And well, I see 1.2 million for 24 and 1.4 million for 25. What's expected to be purchased for that?
I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and our Mrs. Bothwell.
Sorry, Mr. Leader, Madam Chair, if you could repeat the question.
Yes, sir. Just looking for an update on the courthouse and the acquisition of or expansion thereof.
Please state your name and position for the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will ask the Court Administrator to respond.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Suzanne Bothwell, the Judicial Administration. For our major works expected for 2024 and 2025, we do have to replace the roof on the main court building. It is reached of age. We also will be doing some cosmetic work to the exterior of the court buildings. We will be also upgrading our electrics, increasing our generator capacity as an emergency service. Courts need to operate in a storm, immediately after a storm, after a natural disaster. So we have to be in a state of readiness. We do want to refurbish some of our registry spaces, and we will be seeking to do some minor upgrades to courtrooms. We're not at this stage going to be building out additional new courtrooms, but we will be upgrading, for example, the main court building, courtrooms 1 and 2. We are seeking to facilitate those courts becoming digital courts, whereby we can facilitate digital trial management instead of the hard copy bundles, and for audio recordings, etc. So that will require some significant works, but it wouldn't be at the scale of introducing new court buildings. And let me see. Yeah, those are pretty much our capital works, and then we have other miscellaneous upgrades.
So Thank you very much for that answer.
Honourable Leader of the
answer.
Opposition.
Thank you, ma'am. And through you again to Ms. Bothwell. The old Nova Scotia building,
Yes, sir.
is that now fully occupied by the courts?
Yes, yes, sir, it is.
Ms.
Through
Bothwell.
you, Madam Chair, yes. Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we call it the law courts at Cardinal are fully occupied. So on the ground floor, there is a grand court that has a capacity for cells and a small jury trial. On the second floor, there is the home for the Court of Appeal. So a lot of our Court of Appeal cases are dealt there, and also some financial services cases, trials, and some coroner's court cases are also held there. The other two floors are mainly just staff accommodations for the time being, and some of the judiciary is also on the top floor. Yeah, so it's fully occupied and utilized.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No further questions from me, ma'am.
Can I put the question to EA 145 Courthouse 1216500 for 24, 1416000 for 25. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. That completes appropriation to the Chief Justice.
Madam Chair,
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
may I ask you to go ahead and take the vote, put it to the vote, the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions
Most
on page
certainly.
41.
Thank you. The appropriations to the Cabinet on behalf of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPA 1, Prosecution and International Corporation, 6233 343 for 24, 651784 for 25, Equity Investment, EI 60, Office of the
Sorry,
Director.
Madam Chair, I think
Mr. Saunders,
you call a wrong number for 2025, so I just want for the record.
65811784 for 25. EI 60, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, 700,000 for 24 and 100,000 for 25. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Honourable AG, do you wish to convey your thanks to your relevant staff? DPP and Judicial.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very kind. Madam Chair, I just want to, on behalf of the DPP's office as well as the Judicial Department, express thanks to Parliament, to yourself and colleagues for the appropriation, and also, Madam Chair, to thank the staff of the DPP and his officers, as well as the Court Administrator, Mrs. Bothwell, and her officers for the sterling work throughout the relevant period. And we look forward to continuing professional service and dedication. Thank you.
Appropriations for the Attorney General. The Honourable Leader of Opposition, Mr. Saunders, has graciously intimated that I can put this to block vote. LG A1, Legal Advice and Representation in Civil Matters, 2826400924, 3102900825. LG A3, Law Teaching and Publications, 1495620 for 24, 1520644 for 25. LG A4, Drafting of Legislation and Regulations, 1006514 for 24, 1012122 for 25. LGA 5, Policy Advice and Administrative Support to the Attorney General, 1683146 for 24, 1792216 for 25. LGA 6, Financial Intelligence Services, 2333245 for 24, 2779881 for 25. LGA 7, review and modernization of Acts 496439 for 24, 500012 for 25, NGS 8 and 9, Cayman Islands Legal Practitioners Association Limited, 800,000 for 24, same amount 800,000 for 25, other executive expense OE6, contribution to the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force 84,000, the same amount for 25, 84,000 as it was for 24. Equity investment EI 34, portfolio of legal affairs 245,000 in 24 and 125,000 in 25. I shall put the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. That concludes appropriations to the Attorney General. Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to honorable colleagues for the continuing support of the portfolio. I would like to also use this opportunity to thank the staff of the portfolio, entire portfolio. They are here, the Solicitor General and the heads of departments, various departments as outlined here, for their support and their professionalism throughout the relevant financial period. And Madam Chair, look forward to continuing to provide the necessary advice and legal support to the government and people of these islands. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable AG. We'll next turn our attention to page 35, the appropriations to the Honorable Deputy Governor. On behalf of the committee, we'd like to thank him for once again showing what true leadership is by putting others before himself and allowing it to be expedited while he waits in the chamber. CIV 1, policy advice to the head of the civil service, 2625864 for 24, 2564317 for 25. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I'll put the vote to CIV 1, policy advice to the head of the civil service, 2625864 for 24, 2564317 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 2, auditing compliance of human resource and internal financial policies, 1740071 for 24, 1808577 for 25. Are there any questions? If not, I'll put the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 3, management of public sector reform, 1151845 for 24, 1145556 for 25. Are there any questions? Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Deputy Governor. Could the Deputy Governor give us an update on the whole efforts in public sector reform and what's happening there?
Honourable Deputy Governor.
Madam Chair, thank you. Madam Chair, as gave a lot of information in my budget address, but just to for the benefit of the member, we had our 5-year strategic plan that was completed last year. It was completed last year, and as the member would know, we lost about 2 years because of COVID. While we achieved a lot of the action points and the projects that was associated with the plan, during COVID, having the plan really helped us to get through COVID, and by building the capacity within the civil service, improving our leadership, our resiliency, learning how to be flexible, adaptable, nimble, that really helped us support the government and the country during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what we have now embarked on is a strategy refresh. We have gone out to our staff, to our customers, spoken to some of our elected leaders, and said, where are the areas that we need to tackle, look at the work that's been done, and then how we can now update the plan and move it forward. So that work has been completed, and early next year, we will embark on a new plan that is about 3 years in duration. And the majority of the plan remains the same in terms of our priority areas of leadership, good governance, communication, customer service, and communication. But we've also added another pillar, which is accountability. We should be accountable to ourselves. We should be accountable to the government. We should be accountable to our staff. We should be accountable to the public. So we are now focusing on accountability. That's a new area that we have had. That was a lot of feedback from staff, from our customers. That's one of the areas that we thought we needed to improve on. We've made, in my opinion, sea changes in that area, but we can always get better. And it's not just dealing with poor performance, but it's also holding ourselves accountable for delivery of the government priorities. That's what the civil service is designed for and set up for, is to deliver the priority projects of the government. So we want to make sure that we are performing that very, very important function to the very best of our ability. So over the next 3 years, we're going to complete those projects. Nothing more.
There being, Mr. White, you had a question? Okay. There being no other questions, I put a question to CIB 3, Management of Public Sector Reform, 1151845 for 24, 1145556 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 7, Workforce Development within the Civil Service, for 2024, 4280253, 2025, 4502869. Are there any questions? If not, I put the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 11, Servicing and Support for Her Excellency the Governor, 806841 for 24, 817914 for 25. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, just the service and support, what exactly does that entails? I'm just trying to refresh my memory on that vote.
Honorable DG?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'll ask Chief Officer Macfield Nixon to answer that question.
I recognize Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gloria McFeel Nixon, Chief Officer for the Portfolio of the Civil Service. I thank the Honourable Member for his question. There are two outputs under the Governor's Office. These relate to funding that is provided for her office staff that are responsible for providing secretarial support services to the Governor, for managing the social calendar for the Governor's entertainment and community outreach. There is also the cost of the residence, where a large number of events are held annually to support the engagement again with the community. So the operations for the governors that we fund are both the staff within the office to provide her support directly and is responsible for that social calendar, and the staff at the residence that's responsible for fulfilling the services, including the numerous events that happen at Government House.
Thank you.
Mr. Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, roughly how many staff are we talking about in total?
Recognize Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Within the office itself, there is one civil servant that sits within the office, and then within the residence, we have a total of 4 staff, to the best of my recollection.
Any further questions?
Yeah, thank you. So just to be clear then, the 806,000 is for the 5 staff just to support the governor, and that's just pretty much most of the staff costs primarily.
It would also be all of the services, all of the materials for the various events that are held at Government House, some of which are very large. For example, when we host events following the King's birthday celebrations and those events, and the various charities that are hosted there. There are numerous events there that the governor hosts events in order to raise awareness and to recognize members of civil society. Whenever we have visiting dignitaries, or for example, when we have large events, when we would have had the recent meetings here following our FATF reviews, we would have hosted, for example, persons that were here at that time. So there are a number of events that are held at Government House, some of which can host persons well in excess of 100, 150 guests at a time. So that includes all of the costs associated with hosting those events as well as maintaining the residence.
Mr. Saunders?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, I noticed the cost went from 850, well, the forecasted cost of 854,376 in 2023 to 806,841 in 2024. Is it that we are now anticipating less events, or?
Mrs. Markfield Nixon?
Thank you so much for that question, through you, Madam Chair. We have had to significantly review our budget given the constraints that we are facing, and that has meant looking at ways that we would be able to deliver our services more efficiently. So there has been review of cost that we would have at the residence. We look at everything, including the utility costs and things, to see how we would be able to realize savings. It's not a significant reduction, but where we could find savings, those have been applied to next year's budget.
Mr. Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If there are no further questions, I put to the vote CIV 11, servicing and support for her excellence to the governor, 806-841 for 24, 817-914 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it.
Madam Chair.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Sorry, you can put the rest of the vote.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
1 second.
Mr. Saunders, are you seconding the motion?
No. I have, just for the rest of this vote, for the DGs, I just have a question on OE 116 and OE 2. And outside of that, I am pretty much fine with the rest of the vote.
OE2 or CIN2?
OE2.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. McKeever Bush?
thank you. OE 19 probably, and OE 116. I definitely would like to, I guess it comes between those two, the ex gratia recipient payments and the pension uplift. We've given so much that I am a little bit hazy on where it is. And before you get to, but I would like to ask the question that either somewhere in those two.
Okay. All right, let me do CIV 12 to 15. CIV 12, Preservation and Management of Records, 1416273 for 24, 1506421 for 25. CIV 13, Operations of the Elections Office, 759-046 for 24, and 1576126 for 25. CIV 14, Support for Commissions, 2126669 for 24, 25, 2143198. CIV 15, Policy Advice and Administrative Support provided to the Deputy Governor, 2383171 for 24, 2584370 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 16, reports on educational standards and education-related matter. Recognize Mrs. Saunders.
Which one is that?
CIV 16?
No, I didn't. It was OE 116.
Oh, you said 16, but I'll take a forgetfulness for that. CIV 16, report on educational standard and education-related matters. 1159680 for 24, 1304404 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CIN 2, health insurance for civil servants pensioners. 43106 for 24, 47473 for 25. Are there any questions? If not, I put the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Appropriations continuing to the Deputy Governor. NGS 20, Employee Assistance Program. 300105 for 24, 306605 for 25. Are there any questions? If not, I put the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Other executive expenses. OE2, personal emoluments for Her Excellency the Governor and official members of Cabinet. 831600 for 24, 873180 for 25. Are there questions? Mr. Saunders has been recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, just to confirm, because I noticed the description is slightly different than that in the planning estimates. Just to the listening public and members present, in the planning estimate, that vote reads as personal emoluments for HE, the Governor, Premier, Deputy Premier, Speaker of the Legislature. I'm assuming it's pretty much the old description that was there versus what's here. But just to confirm, O is being covered in OEE2 for the 831,600. Just to confirm.
I recognize Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. This particular OE is a historical one that would have been when the portfolio would also have been responsible for our now Parliament building. It has been split so that there are appropriations under a similar OE for members of our Parliament, and then the remaining OE that is within our portfolio is for the Governor and our official members, the Deputy Governor and Attorney General.
Madam Chair, thanks much.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank Ms. Macfield for that. Well, I just wanted to confirm if that's the case, then, Madam Chair, I would ask that the Compass is listening that they can update their recent story on the different salaries that people get. Because if that's there for that, then they should update it in the public's interest. Thank you.
I don't think he was soliciting a response within the chamber, but a notation from outside by those who have printed with a lacuna. OEE 2, personal emoluments for Her Excellency the Governor and official members of Cabinet. 831,600 for 2024 and 873,180 for 2025. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. OE 19, ex gratia recipients plan payments. 2024 1257171, 2025 1240275. Are there any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McKeever Bush.
Earlier, Madam Chair, that maybe the question is between ex gratia recipients' plan payments and pension uplift. And as I said, we've given and I've heard several figures mentioned. Maybe it'll be clearer if somebody says exactly what is what right now we're doing. And the question is, pensions for persons under 10 years. What are we doing, or what have we done, or what we intend to do? Are we intending to give anything towards that? That's a tough question, I know, because I know this is a tough budget, and I know what we went through to get it. But I'd like to hear something about it, ma'am.
I will recognize Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the honorable member for his question. Members of Finance Committee will see that we have here a number of appropriations relating to our pensioners. Notable in this is that the funding that is here are for persons who are not a part of the substantive pension plan or who are receiving a benefit in addition to the substantive pension plan. Those payments do not receive any appropriations through this way. They are paid over by salaries, and the expense from that is met fully from the fund. What we have in OE 19 and OE 116 are supplementary forms of funding that go to our pensioners. In the case of this historical one, which is the older OE 19, that is for persons who would not have received a pension or pension equivalent for at least 4 years, and so this was a form of funding to provide them a pension equivalent where they were not receiving a substantive pension. More recently, we've looked at the total value of pension that were being received by persons who were working for the public service for at least 10 years. And those individuals, if their pension payments were less than what began as, if I can recall, $750, then it increased to $850, then $950, and most recently, the Parliament was very gracious in acknowledging the high cost of living and the impact that that would have on persons with fixed income. That then moved to $1,250, which took effect this month, December, and has been paid to pensioners who are in that category. What the honorable member has raised is that there is still persons who are left outside of this provision, and those would be individuals who would be earning less than this amount but are not qualifying because they worked for the public service for less than 10 years. What we have done, and the government has also taken note, and I'd like to just assure the honorable member that the government has taken note and has charged the PSBB and POCS with pulling up the information to allow it to understand just what size population we are talking about and what the cost implications would be as this hits government's recurrent budget. It is not something that we have an investment fund to meet. In the time since we introduced these ex gratia plans, the historical one, OE19, these many years later, the 2024 appropriation is 1.2, call it 1.3 million. The pension uplift in a relatively short time has already eclipsed that and is now at 2.8 million and continuously has to be reassessed in order to determine new persons who would become eligible. So as we increase the eligibility, it has an exponential impact on what that recurrent cost would be each year. The Pensions Board has pulled together some preliminary information, which we are vetting now and will pass on very shortly to the government in order to inform its deliberations. What we have been able to demonstrate in with this track record of both OE19 and more recently OE 116 is that where there is the ability to meet that on a sustainable basis, we've been able to implement those things very quickly. In this case, we've had a decision of the government that was implemented within days without anyone having to fill out an application form, I'd like to add. So there's been significant work in order to bring that to fruition. We want to make sure that we are bringing together the best information possible, because we realize once that commitment is made, it persists, and we want to make sure that the modeling information is correct. But I have received preliminary information which will be shared with the government in order to begin those deliberations. And if and when approved, we will act expeditiously.
Recognize Mr. McKeever Bush.
I want to thank Mrs. Macfield Nixon for giving us all that information. But I want to understand something clearly. The people under 10 years, some of who make $78, $100, $200, $300, that sort of figure, that's the one you're talking about, you're waiting to get information on, the numbers?
Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to the honourable member's question, that's correct. We were working on the modeling because it becomes significantly more when you're going from 9 to 1 month. We don't really have parameters. We're looking at the full amount of information when the member talks about earning less, who serve less than 10 years, and that becomes a much larger number to contend with. So we've tried to put in place various scenarios that would allow the government to quantify a policy decision for that population.
So, Mr. McKeever Bush.
And you don't have a time frame. Because remember this now, Madam Chair, if I should say so. Some of these people work close to 10 years, but they fell below that 10 years. Some work 9, 8, and I always say when you work for government, if you put in a month, you should get something for it. But these are not junior people. These are seniors, plenty who are in serious need. And again, as I said earlier today, even to them finds themselves on our doorsteps. And everybody thinks that we're getting $1 million a month each. And so we got it and we can give it to everybody. Well, it's not like that. But you and every one of us know we are called upon as members of parliament, representatives of the people, to assist them. These are senior people. This can't be something that can take 6, 7 months to get done. Because the same way that me and you and everybody who's getting something is in need, those persons are in need and probably worse off than us. So we need to find the answers to these things quickly. And I want to thank Mrs. Macfield Nixon because she's taken many, many calls from me. She's had a lot of patience in dealing with these issues, because I say it from the beginning, it's the rank and file civil servants that we need to help, and the rank and file pensioners, those that are not getting anything much. Some are getting good pensions. Thank God for that. But I want to thank her very much, Madam Chair, for her patience and her assistance in helping us to understand.
Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the member for his kind remarks and his reminder about the fact that there are people on the other end of this policy discussion and that they are in urgent need. We very much take this into consideration and will respond as expeditiously as possible.
If there are no other...
Yes, well, Mr.
McKeever Bush.
Thank you very much. You still don't have a time frame. You can't say.
Mrs. Macfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can provide a time frame in terms of when the data will be provided, but again, in other circumstances, we had parameters to work with. We don't have policy parameters. We're just being told to look at people who are not yet receiving, so we can provide a population of who those individuals would be, but we would need more information in order to provide you the costing details. We've come up with scenarios, but those would require deliberations.
Thank you. I think what she's saying is that when she get it to us, it's left to us to turn it around quickly and find the money even quicker. I believe that what you
Would
said.
have still been good if you knew how many of them it was, and we gave them $100 even. They would have had something for Christmas still. Anyway, let me not push the issue any further. No, I'm not going to just buy it from anybody about they can't do this and can't do that, you know. So let's do that.
Yeah,
And I'm not Mrs. Nixon. As I said, thank you very much. But I don't want anybody to come tell me about they can't do this and they can't do that. Because we can do everything that we need to do as a government.
I think they, somewhere into that response might be an invitation to look to see whether there can be a one-time for December, which would buy us some time to look at a more considerate position.
I'll provide you, through you, Madam Chair, provide information this week.
Thank you very much. We know you've been working as a legislator to provide this and other things as well. I recognize Mr. Cockernell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I can certainly agree with the last member that spoke that Ms. Nixon is very patient and she always answers the phone, and I too thank her for how she handles situations. What we find, Madam Speaker, and through you, Madam Chair, there are people who work for government in different departments over a period of time, so it's disjointed. And although they may have worked 9, 10, more than 10 years, they don't have the background and the paperwork to prove that they did. And sometimes they feel hopeless that they aren't able to access this information. Is there a contact that you would advise specifically that could deal with this? Or, I mean, what happens with us is it falls on us as MPs. That's fine. Not a problem. But sometimes we feel like they would like to do more for themselves and have more access.
Recognize Mrs. Markfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very succinctly, I would say that those queries can be directed to me. There are officers within POCS who will search for those records where persons are having difficulties finding them. To provide background, some of the reasons why it takes us time to find records is because persons are sometimes historically been employed by departments directly, and so their records were not held centrally. And so where those records are not available from their departments any longer, sometimes because they suffer damage or we've had changes in administration, we try to find other source records that could be used to verify it. That would mean sometimes assistance from our colleagues at the National Archives. It sometimes means assistance from our colleagues at the Ministry of Finance who are going through old ledgers looking for any record, including handwritten notes to demonstrate that someone would have been working with us at that time. That can be a tedious process, but because we understand what's involved for the other individual, we do go painstakingly to assist them in trying to verify those records, even where they would not have been appointed centrally and have had records in our central payroll system. So there is an application form that we would provide them so that we can make sure, for example, what their surnames would have been at the time in question, what department they recalled working for, roughly what time, who else may have been privy to their having been employed there, and those things help us to more quickly identify where such source records may be found. In many instances, we are able to satisfy the records and allow them to support their applications. Sometimes, unfortunately, we're not able to find records that align with their recollection, but it's only after months of exhaustive search that we would provide a nil return and confirm that we've exhausted that search process.
Mr. Cockernell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, thank you very much. It was very helpful.
I recognize Honorable Minister for Tourism.
I think this falls under the pension component. If a civil servant has retired and while they're waiting for the documentation to verify their tenure and their pension amounts. What is the policy if the process for confirming their pension time period takes a long time? Because sometimes it takes over a year. I have a constituent now who has been trying to get his pension now for almost 14 months. What is the policy in respect to that period of time they didn't get their pension when they were pension eligible?
Markfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the Honourable Minister. Firstly, sir, I would like to extend sincere apologies for that circumstance personally on behalf of POCS, PSPB, and I would ask you to convey that to the member and to confirm that we know that that's an unacceptable outcome. Secondly, sir, I would say that we try to have it so that when persons retire, there is advance notice of their retirement, their records can be verified, and that when they retire, it's a seamless process. But as you've identified, that isn't always the case. There are a number of contributing factors. What I would say in this particular instance, particularly given how long this individual has been waiting for their file, is that if you were to pass that information on to me, I will get to the bottom of what are those factors. Sometimes it is a delay, a slight delay can be caused because the Public Service Pensions Board team have themselves been understaffed. They lost some key staff during COVID and are still trying to replace certain technical staff. Oftentimes, particularly if someone's worked long for government, there could be a period of their service that a contribution was not made, and they are trying to rectify that to ensure that they get the full payment that they're entitled to. The communications between the pensions board and the particular entity can sometimes get bogged down, and it's our job to make sure when we're aware of that, that we unclog that pipeline and fix that as quickly as possible for the pensioners' benefit. What you've just described is unacceptable, sir, and I do apologize, and I commit to working with you to get that information and to rectify that as soon as possible.
Recognize the Minister for Tourism. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Ms. Nixon for the answer, but I was actually trying to find out specifically what happens when that delay happens. Does the person get post-paid payments? For example, my constituent who has been trying to rectify his pension for 14 months obviously will come to his representative for assistance, even go to NAU for assistance, because they're no longer working, they were relying on the pension isn't resolved. So for 14 months, what if that person had to get a loan or something like that to survive? That period, that gap, what happens? Do they post-pay it? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Mrs. Markfield Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Absolutely, the Minister is correct. When the payment is made, the person will be made whole back to the time of when that payment should have been made, and they will receive all retroactive payments accordingly.
If there are no further questions, I'll put a vote on OE 19 ex-glossary recipients plan payment 1257171 for 24, 1240275 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. OE 100, depreciation of the portfolio of civil service executive assets, 2,000 for 24, 2,000 for 25. Are there any questions? If not, I'll put the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Against, no. The ayes have it. OE 107, major governance projects, 170,000 for 24. Same amount, 170,000 for 25. Are there any questions? If not, I'll put the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. OE 116, pension uplift, 4724780 for 24, 4970765 for 25. Are there any questions?
Aye.
If there are no questions, I'll put the vote on OE 116, pension uplift, 4724780 for 24, 4970 765 for 25. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. OE 117, Civil Service Hospitality Fund. 193 is 000 for 24. 203 is 000 for 25. Are there any questions? Honorable Leader of Opposition.
Madam Chair, I've taken a chance, but I'll try it for a second time, put the rest of it to the vote.
Madam Chair, trust me, I don't want to be stopping any bulk votes, but there is one about OE 19 for the Second Chance program that I want to ask a question on. And
Okay, if it wasn't Christmas that I was charitable, I would say turn around and ask Ms. Macfield, because I won't put it in block, but go ahead, Honorable Minister of Tourism. Please proceed.
thank you, Madam Chair. The Honorable Deputy Governor gave in his contributions about the Second Chance programs within the civil service. I can't recall, but obviously with the heightened troubles that we're having, it's important that the listening audience knows that within the civil service, that we are focused on rehabilitation. Can the Deputy Governor just say again a quick synopsis about this program?
I recognize the Honorable Deputy Governor.
Yeah. Madam Chair, thank you very much. Through you. Minister, thank you very much for that question. We do operate a Second Chances program. We feel that the civil service should be part of the solution when it comes to giving persons who have committed offenses but have shown that they have been rehabilitated and they want to become productive members of our community again. So over the last few years, we have implemented this program. We have had, I think the number that I gave a few days ago was 14 persons have gone through that program. Many of them are now permanent employees of the civil service. Some of those persons were out of work for many, many years and were unable to find employment. And I'm very proud to say that some of those persons are outstanding civil servants right now. They have proven that if they were given a second chance, that they would make us proud, and they have. So we will continue the program. What we're looking for is persons who have committed offenses, but have shown over a period of time that they have rehabilitated themselves and are willing to take on employment. And normally persons will contact us. We will put them in touch with work. They will sign up on the portal there, and then the application will be sent into POCS, and myself and some of the staff there will go over the application and then make a decision. But like I said, I'm very, very proud of the program. We have persons working in various government departments. I had a call from a young man from West Bay on Saturday, calling to say that he had become part of the program, that it had changed his life. His mom came onto the phone and also thanked me and the government for giving her son a second chance. And he offered to bring me some breadfruits, but I won't go into that. But it just showed that they were very grateful. And the young man had been without work for, I think, over 2 years. And now he is working with us and actually doing some outstanding work.
If there are no further questions, I'll put the vote. OE 117, Civil Service Hospitality Fund, 193,000 for 24, 203,000 for 25. OE 119, Second Chances Program, 110,000 for 24, 110,000 for 25. OE 120, repairs and maintenance of executive buildings, 16,000 for 24, 25,000 for 25.
Madam Chair.
Mr. McKeever Bush?
Madam Chair.
Sorry. Minister of Tourism, were you getting my attention from Mr. Bush, or you wanted to ask a question? Sorry, could you give it to Minister of Tourism, because I did hear his voice. I just mistakenly thought he was getting my attention for you.
Madam Chair,
Minister of Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just saying, if you're going to take a block vote, take it up to there, because I want a question on the anti-gang and children's safeguard support on OE 126.
Mr. Bush, did you have a question?
Well, that's an observation, ma'am, because this is quite clear what it is. But, ma'am, this is something I raised at caucus, and then we decided not to take it too far. Then, given due diligence to the whole trying to get our time finished and get through quickly here, I didn't raise it in my debate. I wanted to, and that is the amount of rent that government is now spending on rentals, talking about offices.
Oh, that was under DAL?
Yeah, but
that went yesterday?
Well, I thought that, ma'am, you said repairs and maintenance executive buildings. I don't know what executive buildings are, but I thought that I could at least get in what I want to say here, and that is that we have a building sitting up there. The last report that I saw said that that building was structurally sound, and nothing we can do today, but I believe, Madam Chair, that this government needs to put that back on the agenda, to do something with it, because we're spending so much money on rentals. And that building is sitting there, structurally sound from what I heard. Of course, it would take a lot to do all that is necessary to bring it back into living conditions. That's the glass house I'm talking about. So when we're talking about maintenance, I thought I would raise it under that aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I just ask you when we meet on the 8th of January for a caucus to raise it as a substantive matter so that the caucus can discuss it? Because I think we're on the almost same wavelength, perhaps slightly different with what it should be used for, but we can discuss that. Can I then put the question on OE 117 for the Civil Service Hospitality Fund, just for abundance of caution, I'll repeat, 193,000 and 203,000 for 24 and 25 respectively. OE 19, Second Chances Program, 110,000 for 24, 110,000 for 25. OE 120, Repairs and Maintenance of Executive Buildings, 16,000 for 24 and 25,000 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Turning now to OE 126, Anti-Gang and Child Safety Support, 100,000 for 24 and 100,000 for 25. Recognize Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just comparing the budget numbers for 2022, 2023 to that of 2024, 2025. And in light with the unfortunate circumstances that we're dealing with, the crime, which I commend the police commissioner for handling so gracefully. But there's been over 100% drop in the funding with what has been going on. I think there would be more support in this area rather than less. Maybe the DG can give me input on that.
Honourable DG.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. Minister, thank you. This anti-gang strategy is in full gear. It was developed. We have been implementing. I'm looking at my notes here. 12 of the 19 projects have been significantly advanced. So we are well advanced into the strategy. So we didn't. I wouldn't say we didn't need, but when we were looking to to make cuts. This was one of the areas that we looked at since that this strategy had already been developed and we were now implementing. But we were, as you know, Madam Chair, we were under some tight timelines and tight budget restraints, so we had to make cuts somewhere. So we'd made a cut there, but we don't believe that it's going to significantly get in the way of the work of the team. We'll make it happen with the money that we have.
Recognize Honourable Minister of Tourism for follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just so the public and myself understands, because I think I understand where you're coming from now, this is an administrative strategy guidance on what to do holistically as a country, and therefore with the administrative research and all that already being done, the amount of money necessary is, the implementation now is amongst various different departments and areas of ministries.
Madam Chair, that is absolutely correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Honourable Minister for Tourism, you have a follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it would be fair to say then, from a advice and strategy, that the police should be able to be armed with the knowledge on how to address any emerging threats in the gang component, if there is any. I'm not suggesting there is, but if there was.
Yeah.
Honourable DG.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, what this plan doesn't do is get into the operational side of the police. That is a completely different area where our police is actually, as the Minister said, doing a really good job. This is more about prevention. How can we prevent people from joining gangs? So we have teamed up with the Minister of Education on that, to get into our schools to make sure that young people don't see gangs as a cool thing to join. It also looks at rehabilitation. So when somebody who is a gang member comes out of prison or before they come out of prison, what are the things that we can do to steer them away from that life? So it's a real joined up approach across the civil service with many different government departments working together to reduce gangs in our islands.
One question, Madam Chair.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism still had a follow-up, then I'll come to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is my last one. I think it's important that the country knows that the strategy is in works. And if there could be any PR through GIS or what have you to explain what that is, because then they themselves can be a part of the strategy to get a handle on what's happening in our community. So I would encourage you to anything within my ministry, or I'm assuming any member of government, to get that information out. I think it'd be helpful.
Honourable DG, you wish to respond to that?
Yeah, I know, Madam Speaker, just to say, I totally agree. There's some really great work going on from behind the scenes, but I think it's time to now show this spotlight on it. So, Minister, I agree. And I'll guide the team accordingly.
Recognize Mr. McKeever-Bush.
Just to ask whether the minister responsible for social services is involved with this program.
Honourable DG.
Madam Chair, through you, absolutely. They have a stream that they're also taking forward as well. It's a really good joined-up approach. I mean, Madam Chair, it may be necessary for the team to come and give a presentation to caucus, because I think they will be able to be enlightened as to exactly what's going on, so we can arrange that in the new year.
And probably to the opposition as well, as crime is everybody's business to ensure
Absolutely.
that it's out. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
There being no further questions, I put the vote to OE 126, anti-gang and child safeguarding support, 100,000 for 2024, 100,000 for 2025. OE 141, emerging talent program, 200,000 for 24, 250,000 for 25. Equity investment.
One question, ma'am.
On
141.
Okay, please
just
proceed.
if someone could say what it's all about, because
I recognize the Honourable DG. I think he said it when he was debating, but I'm sure he'll happy to repeat it again.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to do so. Madam Chair, as members would know, we are doing our very best in the civil service to attract the best and brightest Caymanians as they come out of school. We want to give them work, but of course, one of the barriers to that employment is experience. So I gave the example of in my speech, of a Caymanian who qualified as a vet. But of course, you can't put her to work and to do her work immediately without some type of supervision until she gets experience. So what we've been able to do is put this fund centrally in POCS and advise government departments, whenever you have bright young Caymanians that you want to come and work in your department, you don't have the money to take them on to train them, you can then use this fund to train the Caymanian until they get experience and until you get the budget to be able to take them on. In some cases, there is a non-Caymanian that can train them, and the non-Caymanian will move on, and the Caymanian will move into the role. So we have had some great success with this program. We've been able to employ a number of young Caymanians who did not have experience and get them into the service and get them working. The feedback has been tremendous. So we would like, Madam Speaker, to employ as many of our young people who are coming back from the civil to the university. But of course, there's a cost associated with that. So we want to make sure that we do give them that opportunity. I heard Mr. Bernard Bush, yes, in his speech talk about how people were actually bonded to government way back when. We don't do that anymore, but we want to make sure that our young people can get a job in the service if they want it, and experience is not a barrier.
There being no further question, I would just say, Honorable DG, seeing what the amount is there, should the eventuality arise throughout the course of 2024 that sum is used, sir, feel free to come back to the government. I would be prepared to go up to $1 million under the necessary supplementary funding for most plausible cause. OE1.
Thank you for the early Christmas present, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. OE 144 Emerging Talent Program, 200,000 for 2020. Sorry, OE. My brain is on the increase right now. OE 141 Emerging Talent Program, 200,000 for 2024, 250,000 for 2025. Equity Investment, EI 35 Portfolio of the Civil Service, 1580 is 0 for 2024. 2025 523 is 0. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. That concludes appropriations to the Deputy Governor. Honorable Deputy Governor.
Madam Chair, thank to you and all of the members for the questions. It was a pleasure to come and answer your questions. Madam Chair, I would like to thank the Chief Officer, Gloria McField-Nixon, and her truly amazing team in POCS and my office, who work hard every day. They make my life better, and trust me, they make the lives of many of our civil servants and the community better. And I sincerely want to thank them for the work they do every day, and to wish them and their families and everyone here a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, and to your staff. We'll be moving on next to the appropriations. So the Premier, on the behalf of the Office of the Commissioner of Police, will just give Mr. Walton a few minutes to transition. It's found on page 37. Good evening, Commissioner Walton. Please state your name and your position, just for formality for the record. Evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. My name is Kurt Walton, Commissioner of Police.
Thank you. We're returning our attentions now to OCP1, Crime Prevention and Protective Services, for 2024, 30886, 564, 2025, 31279 Are there any questions? Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I just want to congratulate Commissioner Walton on his new post, and I'm very happy to see a Caymanian back in that role again. So, Cayman Braca, yeah, but that is a Cayman Braca. That's all right. My mom is actually a Braca too, so I don't mind. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. One of the things that several of my constituents had raised with me a while back, and I didn't hear it myself, but I guess others did, is what does it trigger in terms of a police investigation? And in particular, what I want to talk about is children basically being abused on the radio by different hosts. I mean, when things like that happen nationally, is it a complaint that has to be lodged by the parent or someone? Or, because I mean, we do have these laws in place, and I know other members of the Parliament, I understand, that reached out to the then Commissioner to try to get some action, but no action was basically taken. So I'm trying to get a better understanding in terms of situations like those. What triggers a police investigation?
Commissioner Walton.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, what I would say is the first thing is to, obviously we would need to listen to it so that there's an audio, and to determine whether or not there's any element of criminality, and that could be a series of criminality, whether that is, I suppose, abuse of a child, so we would look at offences under the Children Act, or if there are offences under the Penal Code. In this case, we would look at that, the circumstances, and determine whether or not there's any obvious. We'll have a conversation with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, but importantly, we'd certainly need to be consulting with the parents or guardians of the children or the child.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, through you, and I do understand it didn't happen under this commissioner, but it was a 14-year-old. It was something that pretty much was done at a very national level, and I understand that the feedback that was given was that, quote unquote. I don't know if I'll leave other members to maybe add into it, but I'm just curious in terms of, is there such a limitation on such a thing? Because if that's the case, then maybe we can have it revisited. Is there such a limitation? Would you know that offhand?
Commissioner Walton.
Madam Chair, what I can say is statute of limitations will depend on the category of the offence. In this case, if it's a category C offence, it would have a 6-month limitation. It depends on the particular crime and that we're looking at. I can't comment on that particular case too much, but what I can say is we have fully investigated it, and it currently sat with the Director of Public Prosecutions. So I can say no more about it. I am familiar with the case. It has gone through a full investigation, yes.
If there are no other questions,
Madam Chair,
I recognize Minister Seymour, then Minister Bryan.
thank you, Madam Chair, and I too want to congratulate publicly Commissioner Walton on the same matter in terms of use of our public airwaves and communicating to our public, inciting the public, and at a time when the country needs to be uplifted, there's a lot of profanity. I've sent you some communications and some recordings of some of this profanity. I've seen other persons in the public being questioned, arrested, and and charges pending, etc. And I want to know that the same rule is applied to everyone in the Cayman Islands, whether it was me or anyone else. And I want to know if the information that I sent is being investigated, or if it's been or if it's not being investigated.
Commissioner Walton.
Through you, Madam Chair, just, yes, I'm aware of a number of correspondence from, well, various members of the community. What I will say is, yes, I have taken all of those. I have assigned those to a particular investigator, and we have had a dialogue, or we've had dialogue with the Director of Public Prosecution Office. Again, just on the issue around the law is impartial, so it doesn't matter as long as a law has been broken. We will take that and have a full investigation. There are times when what has been said across IT platforms are not constituted or hasn't passed that threshold of criminality, which make it sometimes difficult. So it's why I mentioned that it has to pass that threshold of criminality, whatever that criminality may be, whether it's the misuse of the ICT platform or whether it's causing annoyance or abuse and threats. But the point is, as long as it makes the threshold or pass the threshold of criminality, then we certainly would fully investigate. All correspondence that's been sent to me has been assigned and being investigated.
Madam Chair.
Minister Seymour.
I want to thank the Commissioner for that, because I don't think that we should have persons in this community communicating with our people and feeling that they are lawless and they can say whatever they want in this country and not be held accountable. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Recognize the Minister of Tourism, then Mr. Cockernall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Commissioner. I just want to ask a few questions about safety in the tourism industry, so to speak, as the Cayman Islands Tourism Association has drawn their concerns about this area. Is there any opportunity here? Obviously, any kind of crime across our whole community is very, very important, but with tourism being a key component to our economy, it'd be an opportune time to give them that comfort of knowing all grounds are covered, so to speak, in respect to the tourism industry.
Commissioner Walton.
Through you, Madam Chair, what I could say is to the Honourable Minister is that we recognise the importance of tourism to our country and the impact on economics. Certainly, if crime was to, I suppose, traverse in that area. What I can say thus far, we have not seen any, certainly the robberies, the 53 robberies we've had thus far for the year, have not really seen where the tourism, I suppose, sector has been targeted. We do understand the anxiety around it, but I can give assurance to the community at large on a whole that certainly as Commissioner of Police, I have mandated that the prevention and tackling of crime is a priority for us, and you hopefully would have seen that into action at the moment with certainly the feedback I've gotten with the increased visibility of policing at night. We've making checks across all the business sectors at night. That's all been properly documented. So just to give that reassurance.
Mr. Cockernall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I too, before I make some comments and ask my question, would like to congratulate Commissioner Walton. And I also want to make mention of our Coast Guard Commander, Scotland, who's right next to him. It's refreshing to see two young Caymanians in such high leadership roles. Through you, Madam Chair, as I look at the budget, this vote last year, 2023, this ending budget was 29 million and some change, and now we moved to 30 million and 31 million. That's not a very large increase in this vote. My concern is we are having real issues in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. I know the commissioner has become aware of them, but I know he's coming into a lot, taking over the commissioner's position. Some of the conversations that we have had, that I have had, is it might be a budget issue from the standpoint of only 8 or 9 officers in the BRAC. And I want to make sure that if there's a funding issue why we don't have the number of officers in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, that we could help you address that in a meaningful way, number one. Number two, as you are well aware, I think the other part is it's one, the expertise level of what you need to investigate to basically unsolved deaths, put it that way, and then break-ins of late, and patrols and some of the other issues that we have on a daily basis during the week of different gatherings. So my question is, are you comfortable with this budget inclusive of what is needed for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman? And is there a separate strategy that you're reviewing for 2 separate islands? And I'll go further than that, since we have the Coast Guard here and many miles of exposed coastline, if he could also let us know his plans for how he looks at Cayman Brac and Little Cayman from a Coast Guard standpoint.
Commissioner Walton.
Through you, Madam Chair, I suppose there's a few parts there. What I'll probably just address first, the sister islands in terms of numbers there. What we did, I recognize that some of the challenges coming out of there, but most of the complaints were around speeding. We've looked at that first and foremost when we went ahead and put 2 what we'd consider our traffic investigative skills, expertise in that area. So we've put a sergeant in there who's previously worked in the traffic management unit, and another constable who also worked in there with a very high level of expertise in traffic investigations in particular. So far this year, we've issued 164 traffic tickets, speeding tickets. We had an issue where certainly the community meetings that I had back in October, complaints were coming in that the police cars had no in-car radar. I changed that in 24 hours and put radars in the cars, and as a result, the feedback I'm getting from the community as well as the chief inspector, there has been a significant reduction, and it's pretty obvious now in terms of that reduction in speeding. We've also put a motorcycle over there with both of the officers who can equally capable officers to ride the motorbike. I am looking, and in fact I had a discussion and a meeting with the chief inspector whether the current staffing levels are adequate, and that is under discussion at the moment, what that looks like based on his current demands. We had 829 calls for service this year, of which we investigated 60 crimes in totality. Most of those were common assaults or assaults of that nature. So there are ongoing discussions whether or not there has to be an increase. Of course, I need to manage that with everything else, all the demands over here as well. As far as the budget is concerned, the word comfort, whether I'm comfortable, I would say is a real tricky word. What I will say about the budget, we've gone through the budget. looked at it in its entirety, and it will no doubt be a challenge overall. But we recognize that's a challenge across the entire civil service, and we'll have to, as best as we can, make it work with existing resources. It will be a challenge. If I'm permitted to say, we were funded for, in the 22 and 23 for 540 staff, and our 24-25 is 510. So that puts me at 30 less officers, or equates to about $2.1 million. But at the moment, just looking at overall how we can utilize existing resources to I suppose work a bit different if we have to. Recognize the challenge across the entire civil service. I've accepted that. That's the reality of the situation. But getting back to the sister islands, up to Monday I was having that discussion with the chief inspector. I'd like to put an additional 2 officers there if I could. I'll just need to see how where we get them from. That's all at the moment.
Yep.
Mr. Cokerno?
Madam Chair, through you, thank you, Commissioner, for that answer. My second question here from the Coast Guard, is there a strategy for CCTV expansion?
Mr. Cokerno, would you mind until we got to OCP4, Coast Guard Services?
Fine.
Or
fine.
is that an indication I can put a block vote to those before it?
I don't have a problem with it. I don't see any.
First, Mrs. Saunders.
Madam Chair,
Minister Seymour.
just wanted to mention something while I heard what I heard just now in terms of speeding in Cayman Bracken.
I would try and get a block vote, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know, but this one is important. We got the narrowest road in Cayman and central Borden town. The speeding and on Anton Borden. Saw a guy doing about 80 miles an hour on Anton Borden this week. And I don't know what we can do. It happens different times of days, so. But definitely more walking traffic in proper Borden town on the main road. And that's the narrowest road, or one of the narrowest roads in Cayman, especially by the Austin station. But as I've said before, and I thank the police and CUC and NRA, I guess it is, for changing the lights on Anton Borden Road. Really quite lit now. That the lights before wasn't really doing justice. I think we need to change them out on the island wherever they are, those old lights. But 2 persons were killed, and I think on Anton Borden, and I don't think they found who hit the hit and run person as yet. So anything we can do, or you can do to assist us in terms of speeding in the Borden town area, I'd really, really appreciate it, Commissioner.
Commissioner Walton.
Through you, Madam Chair, Honourable Minister, absolutely we recognise the issues in Borden town as far as traffic. Certainly the community meetings I've had over there, majority of the complaints were about the traffic situation across the Borden town district. You will know that we've actually placed a separate traffic unit in the Borden town district comprising of a sergeant and 5 constables that are fully focused on traffic. What I can say thus far for the year, it's one of the highest performing as far as overall speeding tickets. Overall, we've issued well over 1,500 traffic tickets just in the Borden town, Shamrock Road area alone. Total of 4,500 speeding tickets across Grand Cayman alone. So that is an increase of just under 1,700 speeding tickets compared to last year. So as far as the speeding enforcement, that continues to be a priority for the RCIPS, understanding the full challenges that enforcement is just really one arm of the overall strategy of the National road safety strategies. But we will continue our bit as far as enforcement as well as the education around it.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, first of all, I want to thank the Commissioner with regards to the traffic situation in Buddentown. They cut through northward and Wilty in the mornings is still a problem for a lot of my constituents. But one issue, Commissioner, that is a much bigger issue is barring accidents where there are no fatalities and recognizing that once you pass Savannah Meadows, any accident literally shut off the eastern districts. Sometimes some fender bender takes too long to clear, and the traffic that backs up is just, I know there's normally a protocol or process in place, but I don't know, fatalities are treated differently for different cases, but is there any way or anything that can be done to sometimes speed up some of these fender benders that literally shut down the entire eastern districts in some evenings or some mornings?
Commissioner Walton.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, what I will say is that we recognize the challenges again in the eastern districts as far as the traffic, specifically around traffic accidents and investigations of those. Absolutely, we have given a directive when it comes to, as you've, I suppose, your quote, minor fender benders, that in no way should create a congestion, because it's unnecessary to create a congestion on our roads. So we've given a directive to our staff is to expedite those as quick as possible. Some of the issues there, I gather, is perhaps the cars are remained in situ while they're awaiting the attendance of the police. But certainly once we get there, if it's a minor, as you've put it, a minor fender bender, so there's no serious injuries or the like, we certainly look to clear the road as quick as possible. And there are a number of ways we can do that, utilizing the sort of a spray paint in the road so we can investigate. But certainly as far as serious and fatal road traffic collisions, unfortunately, because of the evidential aspect of that, which gets challenged, I would dare say, challenged significantly in a grand court, we have to make sure that that is properly, fully investigated, and from crash analysis and everything, that the evidence we have to provide later in court.
Mr. Hugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was burning me, but I was going to hold it for the block vote. But since we've continued on, please allow me to ask this last question. Commissioner Walton, just reflecting back on the question about the budget and your head count, what is your benchmark or your goal for response time to a 911 call for police assistance? And will this reduction in head count or have an adverse effect on that?
Commissioner Walton.
Through you, Madam Chair, I suppose that's two parts again. What I can say there is, if it is specifically, are we speaking of an emergency call directly into 911 citizen emergency? We say 2 to 5 minutes is a benchmark, 2 to 5 minutes. It depends if there's a crime in action that you're looking at threat, risk, and harm if we don't get there in quick time. Appreciating all of the variables given traffic conditions, road conditions, everything else, because we have to also ensure the safety of road users, other road users. The other bit in terms of the budget, so in reality is we just look at how we can maximize the resources. We look at all the data analysis in terms of what we would consider our default locations that if we're going to get a robbery, likely we'll get a robbery in this radius. So when we're out patrolling, we try to make sure our patrol vehicles are in those areas, so it helps with that response time. So it's a bit of data analysis that helps with that. So I don't want to say the budget. It's about really an analytical work to tell us where we should be patrolling, and we put our patrols in those areas.
Mr. Hugh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Commissioner again. When officers work overtime, do they get time back in lieu, or are they paid overtime?
Commissioner Walton?
Through you, Madam Chair, at the moment, it's paid over time on the basis that really incurring come time is a massive liability to government. So we've done everything we could do possibly to move away from come time. There are circumstances where, depending on the circumstances, some come time may be incurred, but the vast majority is around overtime, of which we have a budget.
I recognize Mr. Hugh. Did you have a follow-up? If not, then Mr. Saunders.
So just a final comment in saying I think it'd be important to monitor that overtime under the current situation. It may end up costing the country more in overtime than if we budget for the full complement of officers.
Mr. Saunders?
Just two final things, Madam Chair, through you. One, for the officers that do very good work in a parade, I wish we can probably look at see if we can increase the stipend that they get for the parade when they actually do some of the parade. It's a lot of work, a lot of preparation, and I think it's like what, either $50 or $75 or something like that. It's a very small amount, but it'll be good if we can pay them a little bit more. But the other question I want to ask is in terms of the actual police building itself. I know there were some issues in terms of the actual Georgetown building and so forth. Has there been any progress or anything in the sense of finding maybe a new police headquarters, new police center?
Commissioner Walton?
Through you, Madam Chair, we've had those discussions, or I've had that discussion with the project team. We've actually got a project team on week one looking at our estates and recognizing the issue at the moment. As you probably would have all been aware, should all be aware that essentially we've relocated from the Georgetown Police Station at the moment. Recognizing the challenge at the moment around leases is not the ideal situation. We have identified a number of locations that potentially could serve as, I suppose, a single location with one roof to accommodate the vast majority of our staff. Those discussions are ongoing. We have set aside funding in our 24-25 budget to look at that. As far as owning our own building, we'll obviously have to look at I've put a project team for 2024 to present an outline business case, and then we'll take that forward. But obviously that won't happen over this next budget cycle. But yes, recognizing the current arrangement is certainly not ideal.
Mr. Saunders, you had a follow-up?
No, I'm fine, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, and just thank the Commissioner also for his answers.
Thank you. I put the question into OC. Sorry, Mr. Kukarna.
Thank you. I had left one question with the Commissioner about CCTV in BRAC, if that was part of his strategy and help with investigations.
Commissioner Walton.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I will say absolutely that is part of the strategy. I've already had that discussion with the Department of Public Safety, and monies from their budget, home fair budget, has been set aside for CCTV in the BRAC, recognizing that certainly some of the issues we've seen there in the past and the challenge experienced from not having that advantage of CCTV. So I would expect in 2024 that CCTV should be fully up and functioning. And if I may, I neglected to mention the $100 is a stipend for those officers involved in the parades.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner Walton. If there are no further questions, I'll put the question on OCP 1, Crime Prevention and Protection Services, 3886564 for 24, 31279 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. OCP 2, is it still intention for the block vote? Ms. Saunders, you had a question on
Yeah, I'm fine. The only other questions to me, Madam Chair, is just one question on the Coast Guard services, really.
Okay.
And depending on the answer, maybe something on EI 79, but I'm fine with OCP 2 and OCP 3.
Okay. Honorable Leader of the Opposition. OCP 2, Crime Investigation and Criminal Justice Services, 12494 for 24, 12542 063 for 25. OCP 3, Policy Advice, Administrative and Support Services, 9325312 for 24, 9475724 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. OCP 4, Coast Guard Services, 3811-000 for 24, 3860-000 for 25. Are there any questions? Recognize Mrs. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you to the Commissioner. Just in terms of resources with regards to the Coast Guard, one of the things that we had recognized from earlier that it's easier to catch criminals out at sea, especially the guns and drugs, as opposed to when they come on land. I know there was a plan to basically resource or roll out resources or different tools that would have been necessary for crime fighting at that level. I just wanted to get an update on the progress that they have made since the implementation of the Coast Guard. And in terms of the equipment, the tools, the resources, and everything else, what else would be needed to basically take them to the next level? And also to make sure if they can actually incorporate for Cayman Brack in it also, being one of the major points. Thanks.
Commander Scotland.
Madam Chair, through you to the Minister. Since the inception of the Coast Guard, Robert Scotland, Commandant of the Cayman Islands Coast Guard. Since the creation of the Coast Guard, we have invested in upgrading the assets that we inherited. That entailed the refurbishment of 2 long-range interceptors. We've also acquired a 27-foot patrol craft for near-shore patrols around the island, a 44-foot special response craft for both interdiction and search and rescue work. And lastly, which she's actually on her way, is a 29-foot fast response boat, small, to be used in the sister islands. We initially intended to purchase a larger vessel to replace patrol vessel Guardian. However, while we had the capital for it, we didn't have the operational expense. We didn't have the operational allocation for it.
Are there any further questions? If not, I'll put the question to OCP 4, Coast Guard Services, 3811. Sorry, Minister Seymour.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I heard that they didn't have the operational, and I want to understand or ask Mr. Scotland if he has that figure. What that figure was?
I recognize Commandant Scotland.
Madam Chair, through you to the Honourable Minister. The large patrol vessel that we were looking at would run us around $250,000 in fuel. Maintenance costs would be an additional $125,000 a year to our budget. And in addition, depreciation. The asset would have cost around $5 million, and you'd depreciate $5 million over a 15-year period.
Commandant Scotland, did you say that boat was on order? Or was not ordered, sorry. There's quite a number of boats.
Sorry, Madam Chair, through you, to you. No, the vessel was not ordered. The project was not continued with.
Okay. And how long ago was that?
It was in this year's capital, so I think that decision was made in probably the early part of the year, around March.
Okay. Minister Seymour.
Madam Chair, I saddened to hear that, because anything we can do to beef up the Coast Guard, you know, I'm willing to fight for, as we need to try to limit the amount of illegal crafts coming into this country. And I want to also ask Mr. Scotland if...
Is it illegal grass or crafts?
both. but I want to ask Mr. Scotland, in any event, if he's hiring more officers.
Commandant Scotland.
Madam Chair, through you to the Honourable Minister. I think based on the allocation that's given to us, it's a discussion I'll have to have with the Chief Officer of the OCP. I know that the funding allocated is putting constraints on both of our departments.
Can I invite you to have that conversation at the appropriate time when you next see him in a different forum? Minister Seymour. If there are no further questions, I'll put OCP 4 Coast Guard Services 3811 is 000 for 24. 3860 is 000 for 2025. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Equity Investments, EI 79, Office of the Commissioner of Police, 3195 is 000 for 24. 2315 is 000 for 25. Are there any questions? Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trust me, we've messed up Madam Speaker so much today, many of us, so it's fine. Just in terms of EI 79, I noticed from the description that there are some funds being set aside for cyber from that standpoint. Actually, you know what? That's a national security issue. I will leave that alone. I'm fine.
If there be no more questions, I'll put EI 79, Office of the Commissioner of Police, 3195 is 000 for 24. 2315 is 000 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. That concludes appropriations to the Premier on behalf of the Office of the Commissioner of Police. Commissioner Walton and Commandant Scotland, on behalf of the committee, want to sincerely thank you and to wish you both a Merry Christmas, a safe and serene New Year.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Wish everyone here a Merry Christmas. All the best.
We'll move next to the Cabinet Office. Page 5. We'll give the Cabinet Secretary and his staff a few minutes of transition. Page 5. Moving on to the appropriations for the financial year 24-25, appropriations to the Premier. CBO1, Development and Coordination of Government Policy for the years 24, 2054, 567, for the year 25, 2266, 828. Are there any questions? I recognize the honourable member of the opposition.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Cabinet Secretary. CabSec, it appears the budget is reduced in 24 by about 20% from what it is in 2023. Perhaps you could explain to us what's driving that decline?
CabSec.
For the record, my name is Samuel Rose. I'm Cabinet Secretary. And through you, Madam Chair, not jumping the gun, but CBO1 and CBO2 would need to be kind of read in tandem because we kind of moved CBO1 down slightly, but we added some to CBO2. So that's kind of where the shift was. It was between those two. We kind of had some redefining of some of our outputs and some of the deliverables, and so some fit better in CBO2 while some fit better in CBO1.
Okay, so it looks then like there's actually a bit of an increase. CBO1 and C. If I take
Honourable
those
Leader
two,
of the Opposition.
sorry, ma'am. So it'll be about the same for fiscal 24 and a slight increase for in 2025. Okay.
Are there any questions on CBO1 or CBO2? Cabinet and National Security Council support for servicing 2402-624 for 24, 2427-990 for 25. If there are no questions, I'll put the vote on CBO1 and CBO2. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CBO9, Protocol Services, 934 is 052 for 24, 962, 998 for 25. Are there any questions? Mr. Saunders, and then the Leader of Opposition.
Well, the matter of seniority, I would yield to the Leader of the Opposition.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition has
I have
given way.
one quick question, ma'am, through you to the CabSec. How many people do we actually have working in protocol services?
CabSec.
We currently have 4 full-time staff in terms of full-time staff, and then we have some service providers, some contractors who provide services to us.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, follow up.
And yes, I do, through you, Madam Speaker, to CabSec. I believe that the person leading the team right now is in an acting capacity.
That is correct, sir.
And is there any timetable for either confirming or having someone confirmed into the substantive post?
CabSec.
Yes, sir. We do hope to have that resolved in the coming financial year, definitely within the financial year.
Follow up, Leader of Opposition. Recognize Mrs. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm actually more on a comment. I just want to register my thanks to Mr. Derek Eubanks for the work that he constantly does. I mean, anytime you call him, he's always there, and I just want to register it, that it's really a big help and professional, nice, very polite to deal with, and I just want to register my thanks to him in that regard publicly. That's all. Thank you.
I thought you were going to take it to the same line of the uniform paraders.
Well, they pay him more.
Madam Chair, I just want to add my
Mr. McKeever Bush.
Thanks and appreciation, but the same person and to others in the protocol office, because I think we do get a good service from the protocol officers, particularly when we travel, particularly those of us that know how to use a cane for certain purposes. I'll stop there just to say thanks to them.
And Jamal too. I think that's his name, Jamal. Yeah, Jamal.
Okay. The Honorable Minister for Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair. With the privilege of being the Minister for Tourism, I've had the opportunity to travel to many of the Caribbean islands in official capacity. And I've seen how protocol deals with other members of Parliament in other Caribbean islands. I asked the question in respect to how protocol deals with all members of Parliament. I know they do an amazing job in respect to the ministers, premiers, deputy premier. I think they cover the Chief Justice, the Deputy Governor, particularly when I'm talking about travel. I'm not certain that the same offers are offered to members of Parliament, but with my experience of seeing how other members of Parliament are given that level of respect, particularly when it's traveling, I question what guidelines do we use here, and if the Cabinet Secretary would be of the view of having all members of Parliament offered the same protocols in respect to travel in and out of the country.
Cabsect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, our protocol services have always been available to all members of Parliament. Obviously, we work closely with the Airports Authority in terms of the specific designations and the levels of courtesies that are extended to all members, but we do serve on as available basis. As long as we are available and able to, we will provide assistance directly. Alternatively, there is some assistance that can be rendered from the Airports Authority staff in the rare event that someone's not available from our end. But we do agree that providing a level of service to all members of Parliament is to be expected. And with that would come various levels of screening, etc., which are permitted through the Airports Authority given their security requirements.
Recognized Minister for Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you say outside of Parliament what other members, particularly when I'm trying to specifically ask to make sure that all senior judges are offered the same protocol? Maybe I should already know this information, but it is important that we treat our high officials in that regard. I'm not suggesting that we don't. I just want to confirm for those who are listening.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do believe, yes, that the judiciary is also extended certain levels of protocols. I do recall that they themselves will have their own staff that are able to assist as well at the airport. So I think we do work in tandem with them. I can't say how far down the line it's extended to offhand. I don't know if it's to magistrates, but I definitely know that when there's visiting justices, etc., I do know that there is assistance provided to them.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, just going to switch gears a little bit with protocol services. One position that has always been of particular concern is that of the Chief Justice. I think that is one position also that should also receive a car and a driver. I don't know what the protocols are, but at a minimum, I think it's if it's being done, it'd be great, or something should refuse. But I think as the head of a branch of the government, similar to the governor and yourself, is that at a minimum the Chief Justice should also be treated similarly. So that's just something I want to put out there.
Cabsec, are you able to respond?
No, man, no. Of course it's protocol.
It's duly noted, and we'll take it up. If there are no further questions on Oh, sorry, Mr. Colonel. Sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, there's actually a protocol manual. Can you? Oh. There's a protocol manual that I think this was given out to the Minister of Tourism's point. May I ask that you circulate everybody with this, because it's quite in-depth.
I'd be happy to do so through you, Madam Chair.
Cabinet Sec, thanks. If there are no further questions, Minister of Tourism.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just think it's important that I clarify the fact that the CAB Secretary and his team awarded every member of Parliament, when we take up our term, the relevant documents in the protocol document is a part of that. Sometimes I think it's time for us to review the protocols, because at one point, even our own Premier didn't have a driver. At one point, our Speaker didn't have a driver. And we are a growing society, a more mature democracy. This Parliament is now independent of the civil service. So maybe it's time for a review, is what I'm saying, because I'm not sure that all members of Parliament are in agreement as to those protocols. Now, what I have experienced is that protocols were told to me rather than be involved inside of what the decision is for protocols. So that's what I want to put on record, that I think it needs to be reviewed.
Did you need to respond, CABSEC?
Through you, Madam Chair, we would be happy to be part of an exercise if a review is required, and we will. It's something that falls within the policy remit of the elected government, so we'll be directed as required and funded.
CBO 9 Protocol Services 934-052 for 24, 962-998 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CBO 17 Government Communication Services 3799-510 for 24, 3920-500 for 25. Are there any questions? Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can finally disregard that WhatsApp message to tell me not to raise this subject. This one, actually, Madam Chair, is actually more directed to you. Public broadcasting television. Sorry? No, you didn't send me the WhatsApp. No, the WhatsApp didn't come from you. The WhatsApp came from somebody else. That on someone else's behalf to tell me not to raise the issue for public broadcasting TV. But now that both individuals are gone, I cannot raise it without any fear of any arguments with anyone. I'm just curious, Madam Chair. We do have, throughout this entire session, we're talking about our aging population. We still have a lot of people that kind of really miss having a television station. And I'm wondering if it's something, if there's an appetite in the government to maybe look at, maybe partner with somebody for like a public broadcasting TV, like a PBS or something, because I think a lot of people are still trying to rely on the news that we get on YouTube. And the truth of the fact is, when you look at the views on the YouTube, it's really not that much. And I do have a lot of my seniors still missing having a TV. And I think it's difficult for us as a modern society to literally be without a television station. So I don't know if there's some appetite from the government to partner with someone or to do something in that regard.
CABSEC, are you able to say whether there's a beer appetite or a champagne appetite?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to contribute to the discussion. I think based on the appropriation, this clearly is not indicative of an attempt to create one, but I do believe that I think it's fair to say that our channel, SIG TV, the government's television channel, is not designed to be the end-all and be-all of public broadcasting. I think a public broadcasting model would be a central place for content that's created by other people as well, other programming. We could borrow programming from other regional partners and neighbors in that classic PBS, BBC style model. So whereas CIGTV kind of fits in more in terms of just providing government news and government-driven information. And yes, we are working on various things to freshen up the programming that's on offer now, but it would require a significant investment. I think that's what the member is, through you, Madam Chair, is pointing towards, and partnership, because government could not do it on its own. That's just some unsolicited thoughts, Madam Chair. My apologies.
Mr. Saunders.
Madam Chair, thanks very much for that, CABSEC. Madam Chair, the reason I'd raise this because, in my debate I spoke about, trying to build back up the community and getting the community more involved. There's a lot of contents. A lot of churches right now even carry their programs on YouTube, and even having a channel where even round the clock, different churches have different slots where, their program for that Sunday is literally broadcast on a loop. So not to play favoritism, but, one church right after the other and so forth. We have a lot of talent on island, but we just need a medium to really show. One of the things that we need to start doing more is celebrating Caymanian excellence. And I can tell you, touching even the governor's vote earlier, one of the things that bothers me personally as a representative of the people is every time we want to celebrate Caymanian excellence, we go down to the governor's house. And while no one wants to talk about it, I'll say it now. I think it's time we start looking at creating a house of the people where we can have these events, celebrate Caymanian excellence, where it doesn't just so look as if though, we go to one place where the governor literally takes credit for stuff, something the governor have nothing to do with, where we in this house is responsible for it, or other Caymanians are responsible for it, but just by always celebrating Caymanian excellence at the governor's residence, it make it look as if though us locals aren't doing what we're doing, when in fact that's not the case. So it's one of the things I eventually would like, or maybe it's time now, as some members had said about maybe moving the governor to a different location, and we take in that house, but we will see what happens from there. But we need that forum to celebrate our people's success, our Caymanian excellence. We need that. This is more comment than a question than anything else.
Madam Chair.
Mr. McKeever Bush.
We talk quite a bit here about the future and things that we want to see done, not being done immediately, but we want to see done. That subject has been talked about. You might recall there was even a motion brought here. That is our house, and it's been designated that. That's the people's house. And from Governor Gore time down, they said that's where it belongs to the people. For the same purposes you talked about, and the governor was supposed to move and take her off the beach, or take him off the beach and find a home somewhere about for them. And we would have that to use for different functions. That, we need to do that, and we need to have, I don't know what a television station would cost, but we do need to have our own television station where we, even as a member, could go in and put a program of some kind on, where we would have to pay for it, but yes, it would have it available to us, not having to depend on YouTube. And sometimes you turn it on, you don't know what you can find, or listen to the dirt that go on with the bloggers. So we need to look to the future, not too far away for that.
The Minister for Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for confirmation, we are still on CB 017 communications, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, we have our national radio show, which is hosted by, I think, friends of all of us in this honorable house, Mr. Art Connor, who does an amazing job on his morning shows.
And doing Ebanks.
Again?
And doing Sterling Ebanks.
And doing Sterling Ebanks in the evenings. Thank you for that correction, because he does do an amazing job. We run a show that allows members of the government, members of the opposition, members of the independent members the opportunity to speak Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As a minister, I would love to be on the show more often, but unfortunately, with it being only 3 times a week, there's usually circumstances where you can't get on because a government department, or it's an opposition day, or we have more than one independent member. So there doesn't seem to be enough room. My question to the Cabinet Secretary is, would it be something to be considered to have a show that's geared towards government information and I guess the politics side of this house, Monday to Friday, including Tuesdays and Thursdays, because I don't think that the adequate 3 days a week is enough. The inadequate 3 days a week.
Honorable Minister, I think I can answer that. That is a policy decision for the government. We are the government. We can make that decision and fund it appropriately. If Mr. Burnabush.
Yes, Madam Chair. While we are looking for a safe house inland to put the governors so the hurricane won't affect them, until then we can use the new place at West Bay across from the Turtle Farm that's opening tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We can use that as our place for now. You all are welcome to that. Thank you.
Thank you for your generous offer. Can I put the question then to CBO 17, Government Communication Services, 3799-510 for 24, 3920-500 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Chair, I have conferred with my colleagues on this side. We're prepared to let you go ahead and put the rest of this to the vote. All of it.
Thank you very much. I don't see any indication to the different opinion from Mrs. Saunders, so I would gladly put the vote to CBO 20. Assistance to the Premier and Administration of the Premier's Office, 1487928 for 24, 1197890 for 25. CBO 21, Broadcasting of Public Information and on-air programs, 1818335 for 24, 1854316 for 25. CBO 22, Services Provided by the London Office, 1301765 for 24. For 25, 1313106. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Output Group CBO 24, National Hazard Preparedness, Mitigation, Response, and Recovery Services for 24, 1831544, 2520774442. Are there any questions on CB 24? If not, I'll put the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. CBO 25, Meteorological Services, 2205696 for 24, 2333232 for 25. Are there any questions? If not, I'll put the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Transfer payment. TP 58, Support Services for Red Cross, 70,000 for 24. Honourable.
You can put the rest.
Thank you very much. I gotta start calling you St. Nicholas, man. I like you. TP 58, Support Services for Red Cross, 70,000 for 24, 70,000 for 25. Other executive expenses, OE 96, executive salary reimbursement, 600,000 for 24, 600,000 for 25. OE 125, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency membership, 90,000 for 24, same amount of 90,000 for 25. OE 132, depreciation on Cabinet Office executive assets, 350,000 for 2024, 350,000 for 2025. Equity investment EI 36 Cabinet Office, 6060257 for 24, 1446500 for 2025. I put the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. That concludes appropriations to the Premier. And for the Cabinet Office, not sure if you wish to use this opportunity to convey your gratitude to your staff or Christmas expressions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am indeed very grateful to you and members of Parliament for their continued support, and I wish to thank the wonderful management team of the Cabinet Office. We are saying farewell to Mr. Robert Lewis, who is retiring after 36 years in the public service of tremendous service. He promised to come next year, or in 2 years' time, to Finance Committee, so he didn't come this evening, but I'm sure members who have all had the privilege of working with him would wish to convey to him all the very best on his retirement. So again, thank you, and Christmas greetings to all and your families. God bless.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the appropriations to the Minister of Education. I'll ask the Chief Officer and her supporting staff if they would transition in at this time. Yes, sir. Ms. Monteith, if you would please state your name and position for the Finance Committee so that we could commence, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lynette Monteith, Acting Chief Officer, Ministry of Education.
EGA 1, Policy, Advice, Governance and Ministerial Support Services, 8304-340 for 24, 8398-995 for 25. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair.
Honorable Minister for Tourism. Okay, I'll put the question. All those in favor of EG A1, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. EG A4, Public Library Services, 2174272 for 24, 2175290 for 25. Are there any questions? Ms. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Just one question, Madam Speaker, through you to the Minister. Well, you are the Minister. It's getting late.
That's okay.
I'm just wondering how actively used are the public libraries these days, since so much of what we do is all held online?
Ms. Monteith.
Just begging the indulgence of Madam Chairman to allow the Acting Deputy Chief Officer for Adult Education to respond.
Otherwise known as Obama in the Ministry. Please state your name and position.
Jerome McCoy, Acting Deputy Chief Officer for Adult Education and Public Libraries, Ministry of Education. Through you, Madam Chair, the most used library is, of course, the Georgetown Public Library, followed by the West Bay Public Library. The other libraries are, I would say, underutilized from our intent, but we always strive to promote programs and to drive that engagement. We recently tried an initiative to change the hours of the Eastern District libraries, and we saw some success with that. So we continue to innovate and try to get us to where we need to be.
And I can say by way of innovation that we've actually have commenced a pilot program with the acquisition of a mobile library vehicle for Cayman and Asian community, and we're looking to see how that will work out. Are there any other questions, Mr. Hugh?
Yeah, one quick one through you, Madam Chair. Is there access to computers at the library? And I say my office we have a lot of people that come in and use a computer there. A lot of persons need assistance with as more and more applications, and even registering for the cleanup program was all online this year. Do they have those availabilities in the library? And it's just my office is a little bit off the beaten track because I can't afford Georgetown prices. But
Jerome?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, sir. All libraries have access to computers and internet, and we just secured a procurement where we purchased 50 plus new computers, which we'll be distributing to each library.
Mr. Hugh?
thank you. That's very good to know, because we can direct people there as well that find it difficult to get to us.
There's also training courses that are done for IT at the libraries. Are they, Mr. Hugh?
So that just sprung a wonderful idea. Whenever those are happening, if you can get those programs out to our constituency offices, we can get them out to the public quite easily, and to the people that we know would take advantage of them.
Yeah. Mr. Jerome?
Through you, Madam Chair, we will ensure that we do that, sir.
If there are no further questions, I'll put the vote on EGA 4, Public Libraries, 2174272 for 24, 2175290 for 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. EGA 5, Primary Education Services, 39727 for 24, 4020788 for 25. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I'll put the vote to EGA 5, Primary Educations. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. EGA 6, Secondary Education Services, 44743 for 24, 25, 45135 053. Are there any questions? Ms. Barbara Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question to perhaps the Chief Officer. I think you mentioned in your speech, Honorable Premier, that you're working towards moving the A-level program back into our public schools. Is there any appetite for that program to be returned in either year 24 or 25? Do we have funding for that?
Acting Chief Officer.
Through you, Madam Chair. We're still actively working on that project, and there are several considerations across the 3 high schools, including spacing, etc., to be considered. So once those deliberations have been done, we will put our findings forward in terms of funding for that project.
Ms. Barbara Conley, follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So is there then any sort of time frame for these 2 years, 24, 25, or perhaps thereafter?
Acting Chief Officer.
Through you, Madam Chair. As stated before, we are actively working on that, and there are processes. So we go through decision briefs and then move from there to perhaps representation to Cabinet, caucus and Cabinet for further directives.
Can I just say, Ms. Conley, Miss Conley, that the intention is certainly to have it before April 2025, and the understanding is that once the underground work is done, that a brief of paper will be sent up to the minister, which will then take it to caucus, and then we would see what the funding are, whether it would come back as a Section 12 or 11.5, but we were not at that position yet to actually cost it out, but as the intention to one of the low-hanging fruits I'd like to see for the next minister to pick up and run with.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be happy as well if it's done before or during the year 2025. My granddaughter graduates in 2025.
If there are no further questions, I put EGA 6 to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. EGA 7, Education Services for Students with Special Needs. 13499-289 for 24. 13659-441 for 25. Are there any questions? What is it? Oh, Christmas come early, man. Thank you very much, Mr. Leader of Opposition, and Ms. Conley, and Mr. You, and Mr. Colonel, and Mr. White. EGA 7, Educational for the Abundance of Caution, Education Services for Students with Special Needs, 13499-289, 13659-441 for 24 and 25 respectively. EGA 8, Facilities, Maintenance and Operational School Support Services. 30161 is 040, 24 3635 953 25. 30635 956. Thank you for being awake at this hour and listening for 2025. CC01, Teaching of Tertiary Level Professional and Vocational Programs, 8960255 for 24, 8960255 for 25. CDB1, Disbursement of Government Scholarship Funding, 45,000 for 24, the same amount, 45,000 for 25. NGS 25, Teaching of Tertiary Education Courses, 250,000 for 24, 250,000 for 25. NGS 34, Compulsory Primary and Secondary Education by Assisted Schools, $2 million for 24, $2 million for 25. NGS 79, K9 Security Services, 50,000 for 24, 50,000 for 25. NGS 91, Public School Meals Program, 11,500,000 for 2024, 2025, 10,997,749. If there are no questions, I put the question that EGA 7, 8, CC01, CDB1, NGS 25, NGS 34, NGS 79, NGS 91. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Appropriations to the Minister for Education continuing. TP 27, Preschool Educational Assistance, 722,888 for 24, 722,888 for 25. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. TP 30, Local and Overseas Scholarships Bursaries, 21,754,701, 24, 25, 22,254,701, 25. TP 51, Other Educational Training Assistance, 800,000 for 24, same amount, 800,000 for 25. TP 61, Student Enrichment and Support Services, 900,000 for 24, 900,000 for 25. TP 82, Scholarship Special Education Needs, 145 is 0 for 24. For 25, 145 is 0 is 0. TP 83, Scholarships Medical Specialization, 600,000 for 24, 600,000 for 25. TP 94, Superior Auto Apprenticeship. TP 93, thank you, Public School Grants, can't forget that. 400,000 for 24 and 400,000 for 25. TP 94, Superior Auto Apprenticeship Program, 150,000 for 24, 150,000 for 25. Other executive expenses, OE 11, subscription to Caribbean Examination Council, 13,452 for 24, 13,452 for 25. OE 12, University of the West Indies membership levy, 559,222 for 24, 559,222 for 25. Equity investments, EI 12, Minister of Education, 31870 is 000, 24, 3388 is 000 for 25. EI 46, UCCI, 2130 is 000, 25, 1120 is 000. I put the question for TP 27, 30, 51, 61, 82, 83, 93, and 94, OE 11, OE 12, EI 12, EI 46. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those against, no. The ayes have it. Right there. Acting Chief Officer, would you like to convey expressions of gratitude and Christmas greetings to your staff?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to thank the staff who came with me this afternoon and to extend my thanks to the hardworking staff in the core ministry and all of those teachers and other educators in our school who work very hard every day in the interest of our children. And I would like to further extend Christmas greetings to all honorable members of this chamber.
Thank you. Thank you to you and the staff on behalf of all honorable members for the hard work that you've done. I think they gave you all a very, very, very nice Christmas gift. In accordance with Standing Orders 64.4, I shall put the question as to whether honorable members approve the schedule forming part of the bill as amended. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. The schedule as amended now stand part of the bill. Next, we have to consider the clauses in the bill. In accordance with Standing Order 64.5, I shall put the question as to whether honorable members approve Clause 1, standing part of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. The ayes have it. Clause 1 now stand part of the bill. Similarly, I'll put the question at Clause 2. I'll put the question in Clause 2 of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. Clause 2 now stands part of the bill. In accordance with Standing Order 64.7, I shall put the question as to whether I, the chairman of the committee, do report the bill to the House. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The bill shall now be reported to the House. I wish to thank all honorable members for my first experience in chairing Finance Committee, for you making it not such a difficult one. Thank you very much. Proceedings in Finance. Thank all honorable members. The proceedings in the Finance Committee are concluded. Suffice to say that we have to go through the minutes, peruse and approve them in a large committee room. And I'm reliably informed by the lady next to me that they should be ready around about 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So, and after we approve them, obviously we have to go back to the House to do the report in the third reading. We will also proceed with Section 11.5 statements as well as laying of reports, at which time We should be able to conclude the proceedings of the House tomorrow, but that's left to the Honorable Speaker. For the purposes of these proceedings, the proceeding in Finance Committee is now hereby concluded for today.